Shout out to Ring RQ, Julius, you legend. We're going to do a joint interview, yeah? Yeah, we'll do a joint interview, Julius. Thanks for the support. You're a legend. From your girls, Raven and Ellie.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. It's official. Eddie Hearn took to his social media and tagged unbeaten up-and-comer Bradford Ellie Scotney in a post that reads, "Congrats to Ellie Scotney, just been ordered to fight the IBF champion of Australia, Shernika Johnson, next, hashtag and new." We already knew that the interest was there, the desire to put Ellie Scotney in a title fight for her very next fight. I myself wondered if a Shernika Johnson fight would be too much too soon for young Ellie Scotney, who doesn't even have 10 fights yet, but it seems that the IBF has left Shernika Johnson. New Zealand-born, Australian-based Shernika Johnson, it seems the IBF haven't left her with much of a choice. This is an order. I can only deduce that, like many orders that come down by way of the alphabet organizations, the 30-day negotiation period has already started upon issuance of the order.
The clock is ticking.
Young Ellie Scotney
Bradford
took to her own social media to react to the news, saying, "Oh, what a feeling. We asked, and Eddie Hearn delivered. Now, it's my turn."
Bradford.
Ellie Scotney certainly seems elated with the news. You wonder if Shernika Johnson shares in that same sentiment. Kind of get the sense that Shernika herself and her team might have wanted a few hometown title defenses before traveling abroad as a traveling and defending champion. This is a fight that I have no doubts will take place It's not going to happen this year. I don't think there's enough time to do it. No way. This would presumably take place in the first or second quarter of next year. Likely as part of a Matchroom show. The venue options range anywhere from the United Kingdom all the way to the land down under in Australia, where Matchroom has broken through and staged their first show on Australian soil, the Jock Bravas versus Liam Battle fight of earlier this year. They can do it in either location. They have the ability. Though make no mistake, I'm sure that Matchroom will be helming the promotional effort. This fight will take place on a Matchroom show. A very different fight from every fight that Ellie Scotney...
Bradford.
It's a different fight with a different kind of fighter than any fighter she's faced so far. She's faced a lot of mid-range to inside fighters and some swarmers like Jorgelina Guanini and Melis Gangloff, more recently Spain's own EBU champion, then champion Mary Romero. And a former champion, also a mid-range to inside fighter, in Argentina's own Maria Cecilia Roman. What sets Shernika Johnson apart is that she, like Ellie Scotney, she's a younger fighter who's not limited to boxing mid-range to inside. She can be a moving target. She can be an outside fighter when she needs to be and assert herself in the pocket. She can box on the outside when she needs to and assert herself mid-range to inside when she needs to. She's a cerebral fighter, a finesse fight kind of fighter like Ellie. It's going to boil down to who's better with that base style, who really is the better boxer, the better technician. Ellie Scotney, an ambitious youngster that shows a lot of promise and a hell of a high ceiling. Her team must be supremely confident to put her in a situation like this as young as she is, because she doesn't need to be fighting for a title this early in her career, but she wants to, and that's what they want for her.
Bradford.
We'll talk more about this fight as the fight date approaches. In women's welterweight news, WBO has issued Jessica McCaskill a show cause letter. We talked about this in passing in my previous video. A portion of the letter reads, "The McCaskill versus Cameron bout was sanctioned subject to if McCaskill was successful against Cameron, she would have 10 days after the bout to determine which weight division, 140 or 147 pounds, be retained. Which version of the title, the welterweight version or the junior welterweight version? And if McCaskill was not successful against Cameron, her WBO welterweight championship title would be declared vacant, ipso facto. These conditions were agreed and accepted by Matchroom Boxing, Section 5E of the WBO regulations of World Championship contests. On Saturday, November 5th, 2022, Chantel Cameron defeated Jessica McCaskill via unanimous decision. The bout was held at the Etihad Arena in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. In light of McCaskill's defeat, the provision referenced in the official sanction letter triggered accordingly with immediate effect. Therefore, based on the foregoing, Ms. McCaskill is hereby ordered to show cause within the next 10 days upon issuance of this notice as to why this committee should not declare the WBO Female Welterweight Championship title vacant pursuant the provisions imposed by the WBO per the official sanction letter referenced herein. Now, I don't necessarily agree with this provision. Why should Jessica losing a fight at 140 affect her status as a champion at 147? Not all the sanctioning bodies have this provision, you understand. No, not all of them. I don't agree with this provision. However, the WBO are pretty consistent when it comes to this. Whenever they see one of their champions trying to campaign at another weight, they stay on top of them and they put them on the spot. They put Senicia Estrada on the spot, and now they're putting Jessica McCaskill on the spot. She has to show cause now. She has to give them a reason to let her hang on to that WBO title. And I don't know, perhaps her being in the running for a Natasha Jonas fight might be enough to convince them, enough to sway them. Perhaps it will, or perhaps it won't. If that title becomes vacant in the very near future, that is a title that anyone from Natasha Jonas or Terry Harpier could end up fighting for. Those two junior middleweight champions, we talked about it in my previous video, and how Natasha Jonas and Ben Shalom, they've got Jessica McCaskill as a person of interest for their very next fight at some point next year. They're talking about moving down in weight for their very next fight. I've been telling you, they're not going to stay up there at junior middleweight for very long. I don't know that Rick and Jessica can convince the WBO to let them hang on to that belt. We'll see if they can. But if they can't, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see anyone from Terry Harper to Natasha Jonas to Christina Lenarditu, to former undisputed champion Cecilia Brækhus, to April Hunter, vying to pick up that newly vacated WBO title. It appears that the landscape at 147 pounds is changing. Rather, the WBO is quite forcefully changing it. It's up to Rick and Jess to show them cause why she should stay WBO champion. In men's heavyweight news, former unified heavyweight champion Andy Ruiz on Deontay Wilder said, "Once I land the right hand, he's going down." Deontay Wilder has since rebounded off his 2 consecutive losses to Tyson Fury with Robert Helenius earlier this year. He stopped Robert Helenius in a round, but in doing so left many unanswered questions as to what he really has left. How much can he endure? For me, I feel like I can take a punch. I'm not saying that Wilder doesn't hit hard or nothing. Ruiz told Boxing Social, "I'm gonna get in, I'm gonna throw my combinations, I'm gonna be fast, explosive, and I throw that right hand in his temple, and he's gonna go down. We're right here trying to stay busy and trying to stay focused." This fight has since been ordered as a final eliminator by way of the WBC to crown Tyson Fury's next mandatory challenger. Tyson Fury himself, who's actually entertaining the idea of a 4th Wilder fight in the United Kingdom this time, as all 3 fights in the trilogy were fought here in the United States. Wilder's coming off a first-round knockout of Robert Helenius in October. Ruiz did not sound too impressed by the feat. We knew he was going to get that one easy, he said. That was his sparring partner. So what do you do with sparring partners? You know exactly what you've got to do. You know exactly what they do. And he's not wrong. There was a level of familiarity there between Deontay Wilder and Robert Helenius, though not exclusive to Robert being his former sparring partner. Most people knew how that fight was going to end because Robert Helenius had been stopped in the past by lesser punchers than Deontay Wilder. Many years ago, he was stopped by Johan Duhaupas. In more recent years, he was stopped by a non-puncher in Gerald Washington. So if those guys could chin Robert Helenius, it was a sure bet that Wilder would as well. And he did. I'm really confident, Ruiz recently said in a separate interview, "Nobody can really match my style. Once they get inside that ring, I'm like a different person. I feel the abilities that I have, the power, the quickness, the movement, and me being short is actually an advantage. It's harder for the taller guys to fight shorter guys that move around and are fast. I'm gonna win against Wilder." Well, he's only half right. Andy Ruiz has fast hands, he does, but he has slow feet. And because he has slow feet, closing the distance and getting mid-range to inside on Deontay Wilder in order to land those combinations, well, that could prove difficult. Though Andy likes his chances, and so does Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn, who says, "Wilder versus Ruiz is a brilliant fight. I see him beating Deontay Wilder." I don't know if that's just Eddie Hearn throwing a bit of shade, hyping up Andy Ruiz for having beaten Anthony Joshua. They're 1-1 with each other, and I wouldn't mind seeing a trilogy with them because they're 1-1 with each other. But I don't know if this is a serious evaluation of the situation or if it's just Eddie hyping up Andy Ruiz for holding at least one victory over his prize stallion, Anthony Joshua. Eddie Hearn stated Ruiz versus Wilder is a brilliant fight. I see him beating Deontay Wilder.
Can he really do it is the question. It's contingent upon Andy Ruiz's ability to slip the straight punches from the outside coming in, time the right hand and stay out of the way of it, then closing the gap and getting mid-range to inside on Deontay Wilder where he's vulnerable, because Deontay Wilder, for all his power and his physical dimensions, his height and his reach, he's no good on the inside. That's why Tyson Fury beat him.
That's how.
I really like Andy Ruiz. I thought he looked better against Ortiz. Good victory. Wilder was good the other night. Helenius might be past his best, but still, Wilder is very dangerous. He's brilliant for the sport. And Andy is a warrior. I just think Wilder versus Andy Ruiz is a brilliant fight.
A battle of the former heavyweight champions.
An in-house fight involving two PBC fighters shouldn't take long to make. There is a question as to how long it'll take them to get this fight over the line and when exactly does it go down, because it's been ordered by the WBC, you understand.
You could argue that Andy Ruiz had to work a lot harder to beat Luis Ortiz than Deontay did to beat Robert Helenius.
Ahead of those fights, some time had passed between matches. Some time had passed between contests, between Deontay Wilder's last fight and his most recent fight, and Andy's last fight and his most recent fight. Both men had considerable ring rust they needed to shake off, but Deontay Wilder only banked one round. Hell, not even a whole round.
There's a year between the last Tyson Fury fight and the more recent Robert Helenius fight. And that's basically saying that Deontay Wilder, by the time he fights Andy Ruiz, over a year's time, he will have only fought for a round.
There's a similar gap in between Andy Ruiz's last fight and the fight before that. There's over a year's time in between the Chris Arreola fight and the more recent Luis Ortiz fight, with the difference being that
Andy Ruiz banked more rounds in that Ortiz fight than Wilder banked in that Helenius fight. So Andy did get to effectively shake off the cobwebs and shake off the ring rust, whereas with Wilder, his fight only lasted one round.
You can look at that one of two ways. That Deontay Wilder still packs enough punch that he can take a guy out quick, take a guy out early. You can look at it that way. Or you can look at it as, that Robert Helenius fight, in terms of shaking off ring rust, you really didn't get to do that. And Andy Ruiz, he's not a carbon copy of Robert Helenius. They're very different fighters that have very different physical dimensions. Andy Ruiz actually has a reputation for having a granite chin. Robert Helenius doesn't.
Robert Helenius is a bigger target than Andy Ruiz.
You don't have to punch down to hit him. He's a bigger guy, a taller guy, takes up more space than Andy does. So it is a different set of challenges between those two fighters for Deontay Wilder. If Andy Ruiz can slip Wilder's jab and time that right hand to where he's out of the way.
If he can time Wilder's right and counter it and hit Wilder with a punch he doesn't see, we'll get our answer.
The answer we didn't get in the Robert Helenius fight. What can Wilder endure at this stage in his career? After two systematic beatings at the hands of Tyson Fury, what's this guy's punch resistance really like? We didn't get that answer in the Helenius fight, but in the Andy Ruiz fight, we might.
And that's what makes it a brilliant fight.
I don't know how well this fight is going to do at the box office, because both Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz's box office numbers were piss poor. Maybe they can generate more interest opposite the ring each other.
Maybe they can, but in any event, I do think this is a good fight.
If Deontay Wilder wins it, Tyson Fury has left the door open for a fourth installment of their saga. A fourth fight. You heard that right. Tyson Fury on a potential fourth fight versus Deontay Wilder. That'd be amazing here. I've been over there 3 times. If he wants the fourth fight, he's got to come to England. Do that at Wembley. Break all records again.
We know Tyson Fury's not too good to reheat his old leftovers. I mean, he's already fought Deontay Wilder 3 times. He's about to fight Derek Chisora for a 3rd time.
No, he's not too good for yesterday's meatloaf.
I don't really like what this heralds. What's supposed to be the energy around a Fury versus Usyk fight, undisputed heavyweight title fight. I mean, look what we're hearing. Usyk versus Hrgovic.
Fury versus Wilder 4? This is what we're hearing. This is the news. This is what's making headlines. A big part of the reason that Tyson Fury might want to do the 4th fight, if there is a 4th fight, in the United Kingdom is because an American audience has already seen that 3 times.
The audience for that fight isn't growing. It's not getting bigger. It's getting smaller. The 2nd fight did a lot more buys at the box office than the 1st fight did. The 2nd fight did a lot of buys, but the third fight did less than the 2nd fight.
The 2nd fight did 800,000 buys, or a little over 800,000 buys, but the third fight did 200,000 less buys than that. Did 600,000. So what would a 4th fight do in America?
Likely less than than the third fight did last year.
You need to get a fresh set of eyes on that thing. Quote unquote fresh, so to speak. Those who perhaps didn't fly over across the pond to the United States to be there for the first 3 fights or any one of the first 3 fights, those who might have missed it and had to watch it from their television screens at home, if they do a 4th fight in the United Kingdom, I guess the appeal would be that now you get the chance to be there, to witness it live.
As opposed to watching it on your television screen by way of BT Sport Box Office.
So, that's one reason why they might have to do the fight in the United Kingdom. There's no audience for that fight in America. Not anymore. It's not going to do better than the first 3 fights did. If anything, it'll do worse. And, the second reason is, as far as I know, that ban is still in place for Tyson Fury. That ban that barred him from entering into the country 2 times. Tyson Fury may not be able to enter into the United States in order to do a 4th fight with Deontay.
Now listen, if Deontay Wilder beats Andy Ruiz, if he knocks him out, Tyson Fury is on the hook, as Deontay Wilder would be his mandatory challenger, his willingness to do the fight.
Like I said, Tyson Fury's proven that he ain't too good to eat yesterday's meatloaf. He's willing to revisit his old stomping grounds because for him, it's a safe choice, a safer choice than facing who else and what else is out there.
Is it my imagination, or does Tyson Fury seem more enthusiastic about fighting Wilder again than unifying titles with Alexander Usyk?
Yeah, here's some of the things Tyson Fury says, that he's not hanging around to unify titles and he doesn't care about that kind of stuff. He really doesn't care about that kind of stuff, legacy and all that jazz. But he talks about the Wilder fight like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Talks that fight up all the time.
The door is open for a 4th installment. The question now is, how bad do the Deontay Wilder people want a 4th fight? Are they willing to go in there with this guy again, given how the last 2 fights turned out? The cheating accusations, the hard feelings, the bad blood. Does Deontay Wilder want a 4th fight with Tyson Fury?
He's got to get through Andy Ruiz to do it, but if he does, Shelley Finkel, Al Heyman, all these people over there at the PBC, they'd really put him in there with Tyson Fury again?
Like a lamb to the slaughter. Is that what they're willing to do to make a quick buck?
If all the pieces fall into place, we may yet get that answer.
Well, I'm not excited about a 4th installment. I'm not a 4th fight, but you have to remember, in the United Kingdom, where the price point is 4 times less than it is here for a box office fight, and for all those folks who would have liked to have been in attendance for the first 3 fights,
that might be a decent enough selling point for them. Just being able to be there and witnessing it live.
I don't think it would do what an Anthony Joshua fight would do in the United Kingdom, but I do think it might do a little better than this Derek Chisora trilogy.
A little.